Welcome back to the Essentially You podcast. Dr. Mindy Pelz, congratulations on your book that's out right now. I love it. I love it. Not only is the cover gorgeous, because you know what, sometimes that matters, but the book is phenomenal. And you know, you and I both know this really important truth is that women are not small men. We're not small men.
1000%.
And that's why Fast Like a Girl is really about us, how we can make it work for ourselves. I'm so excited.
I agree 1000%. And there's like two things I have to say on what you just said. One, do you know that when they gave me the first go of the cover, it was white? And I was like, this sucks. And so they were like, gave me two options and they both were white. And so I sent it to my agent. My agent was like, that is not you. So I sent it back and I was like, can you put these colors? And they put that beautiful teal color. So
it's gorgeous.
Yeah. Thank you.
Gorgeous. I love that color. It just feels so serene. It feels so yummy wellness. I'm not going to lie. I like my blue too up here.
Yes.
That Tiffany blue, but your blue is gorgeous. It's just such a beautiful book. I just want to grab it. I want to read it. I have been reading it and I love it. And I love having you on the show. I know it is the new year. This is coming out in the new year. So I just want to know like what has been like your biggest intention? How are you wanting to feel this year? I just would love for you to just share with us how you are setting the tone on making 2023 an amazing year for you.
For me personally?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, this is a great question. So I'm going to tell you the short answer to a very long story.
Sure.
2022 provided me more change in my life than I've ever had ever. My kids moved out of the house. We're empty nesters now. All of my couple of my key right-hand people in my staff moved out and they're out of our area. They're still in our business. I had friends leaving. And then in September, I closed my clinic and I'm 100% all virtual and writing books and educating the world. So in all of that, there was so much grief. And I just felt the depth of sadness like I hadn't before. So this year, what I want to do is ground myself, and my intention, I always pick a word for the year, and my word this year is connected. And the reason I picked that is I feel like I need to get reconnected to me. When you have had a lot of change, when you put a book out like this, you just feel like there's little parts of you that have been splintered apart. And I really want to come back to my center. And on top of that, I have some relationships in my life that I just want to connect back into. So connected is my intention.
I love that. I love that so much for you. I love that so much for anybody. Right. But yeah, having a big year like you had, and the book was just mentioned at the end of that. But let's be honest, all of last year was gearing up for that incredible launch that you had. That you're still in right this second. But yeah, I mean, when I feel you. All of our best friends moved away. Everyone lived in San Diego. Everyone moved away this year, and we've been visiting them. But it shifts and changes. Yeah. And I can't even imagine. I mean, I cannot. Like my little heart just like squeezed when you said you guys became empty nesters this year and your kids went off to go do their thing. Like I can't even go there. You know what I'm saying? With my little 2-year-old.
You know what was so hard about it is that our house was the hub. So, and especially during the pandemic time and all of that, we just had a lot of kids. We just created an environment where it was supportive and safe, and all that was gone. And so these kids that were like my kids, it wasn't just my son going off to college, but it just was like, wow, there's just the energy just got sucked out of our house. And I was sitting there in the loneliness, like, what is going on?
It's just me and my book over here.
It's me, my book, and my hubby, so thank God I love my hubby and I enjoy writing a book. So, but it was a real energetic shift.
Oh my gosh, I can't. Yeah, we are very much a hub ourselves, and we're so grateful for that.
Of course, and on the friend front, you sort of lose sight of how important it is to have friends in your area, because there's a lot of our friends that were what I call our spontaneous friends. They were the people you could call at 4 p.m. and be like, hey, you want to go to dinner tonight? Let's go do X, Y, and Z. Well, a lot of those spontaneous friends actually got divorced. And many people moved out of the area. It was just like, I felt like my whole world just broke apart and just totally changed. It's crazy. And I think a lot of people are feeling that in the pandemic. So many paradigms shifting.
And so many people moved away. Yeah. Everybody moved to Austin.
Right. That's right. Go find your California. Are all we need like a Where's Waldo. It's like, where's my friend?
Yeah, where my friends in Austin. Yeah, they're in Austin. They're in Washington. They're in Florida. They all moved away from California. I think California has seen like 1 million people exodus or something like that. So
that's crazy.
And what are some of the habits that you are bringing through 2022 into 2023, in particular, like health habits? You are one of the most healthy, vibrant, high energy. I mean, obviously you walk the walk, right? You're not just talking about it, like you live what you teach, you live what you educate. So what are some of the things that are going to just come on right through into 2023 that are going to help you kind of stay grounded?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the first thing I would say is I have carved out, now that I don't rush off to an office every morning, I spend the first 2 hours now meditating, reading, connecting to myself. I have a hyperbaric oxygen chamber at my house. So I've been getting in every morning. I crawl out of bed, I get in my chamber for an hour, I listen to some meditation, and then I've become like a biohacking center for myself. I've got a PEMF chair and I sit in there and read something. So my morning routine has become sacred to me in such a big way. I would say the other thing that I'm, as a 53-year-old woman, I'm really focused on is trying to get some of my exercise habits back, like building muscle. So I hired a trainer last year. I'm going to continue forward with that. And then the last thing, what might be the most surprising, and I've been sort of public about it, is that I've gone down the rabbit hole of trying to understand plant medicine and psychedelics. I've even gone into EMDR therapy. So I'm looking at all the different ways and strategies we have to create neurogenesis in our brain, especially as we go through menopause. As you know, that loss of, estrogen, as you've written about, is like, it just is so difficult on the brain. And as a 53-year-old woman, I find myself not reacting to stress in the same way. I'm much more reactionary. So last year I dove into, really being full transparent, like what's the research on psilocybin? What's the research on kava? I've even looked at, there's a lot of discussion right now about the adverse effects of alcohol and THC on the brain. So, okay, well, if those aren't tools to calm the menopausal brain, what other tools do I have? And it's been really interesting what I've discovered. So I'm going to continue on that journey this year.
I love that. I love that journey so much, not only for healing past traumas and patterns that we don't even know of. They're just kind of unconscious, running as they always run. But then also, you're right, as our brains are changing, our neurochemistry is changing, serotonin, dopamine, obviously two of the most incredible neurohormones we are losing.
Yep.
Some more precipitously than others, but estrogen for sure. And such a major player on how our brain functions, how we're clear, our motivation, our memory, alertness, all of that matters. And yeah, we want to keep as sharp as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's such a good point to highlight, especially for the women going through perimenopause and menopause. I love this idea that the brain has to recalibrate to the loss of hormones. And I think if we understand that there's this decade, starting in the late 30s, going into your 40s, where that loss of estrogen makes you react to stress so much differently, makes you hold on to information differently. And so I can feel it in myself at the end of a day, that I've been pushing really hard. Like, you give me something stressful and I literally can't handle it. And I've learned with my husband, I'll just say, bring me that problem tomorrow, because I literally don't have the neurochemical resources right now to solve that. It's just going to agitate me. So I've been learning, okay, well, how do I fill up the serotonin and the dopamine? Because if you're losing estrogen, your brain's recalibrating. You can, estrogen is a precursor for serotonin and dopamine. So now what do you do with those two neurotransmitters? So that's really the depth in which I've been trying to understand how to help my own self.
Yeah, absolutely. Any consideration, Vinny? I know we've always been very natural about what we do, adaptogenic herbs, and obviously plant medicine can be a possibility as well. But have you looked into, I know you know a lot of the research about bioidentical hormones. I'm just curious on your take on it. Like, how do you feel about it? I feel like I'm becoming a little bit more gray area. I'm a big fan of every tool in the toolbox.
Yep.
I'm like, throw it all at me.
Yep.
whatever's going to get me functioning again.
Yes. Yeah, it's really true. So I would say for the most part, I have been like, let me do everything naturally. Let me do everything through lifestyle. And that's what my last book, The Menopause Reset, was written about, is here's what I did. But when recently in the last couple of years, I just noticed that, again, it's my reaction to stress. And I found that I didn't like how I was showing up for like my family. I was easy to agitate. And so I ran a hormone test on myself, a Dutch test, and I actually handed it over, Dr. Carrie Jones.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I love
I handed it over to her, and I was like, okay, this was this summer. I was like, I'm your patient. Tell me what I need to do. Like, let's just pretend that I don't know anything. And she said to me, girl, you got to get on some bioidenticals. And she said, primarily because you need to make sure that this mind of yours stays really sharp. So I started trying. I mean, I don't know what you've heard about bioidenticals as far as the learning curve and finding what works for you. So I started, trying progesterone. That was horrible, like total estrogen drop. I tried estrogen, didn't really notice anything. And then I went in with testosterone. So now I'm doing a testosterone bioidentical. Game changer. So I'm experimenting to see, I'm tiptoeing lightly in it. And to your point, I think every woman's got to find their own journey.
It is. It's true. We're all so, I mean, obviously our chemistry is also different. Obviously our experiences are also different. How we take care of our body is so different. I see some women absolutely need a little bit of progesterone in their 40s just to get through the crazy transition, especially with, mood issues, sleep issues, just taking like the edge off. Like progesterone could be that glass of wine at night.
Yeah, the progesterone wine. That's so good. I love that.
But then, like the unsung hero that we never talk about is testosterone. And, and she or he, however you want to, name her, it's dropping precipitously as well, along with progesterone. We often don't have any by the time we get to menopause. Major player. It's one of our best build you up hormones, just like growth hormone. And then you've got estrogen, who is playing just a major role in our brain health, our cardiovascular health, our bone health. I mean, it is a metabolic, anabolic major player here, keeping insulin sensitive. How the brain is working, how the brain is metabolizing energy, the metabolic process of our brain, a lot of in part is being driven by estrogen. And so, but then, when we've got that window where it's a great time to do it, like around menopause, at the beginning of menopause. But you've got to be so mindful, titrating the right hormones, depending on your circumstances. You really have to be in lockstep with your doctor to figure out the right dosage.
It's so true. And I think that's the thing about all hormone replacement, but especially bioidenticals, is that there's going to be an art to it that's unique to you. You got to give it enough time. You might at first feel like you don't feel good, like progesterone was not the right thing for me at this age to go in with. I think primarily because it dropped my estrogen even more. So it just made, and then that was what gave us an idea like, hey, maybe we need to go in with testosterone. One thing I learned interesting, I actually learned this from talking to John Gray this year. Men are from Mars.
I've had him on the show.
Yeah, he's a funny little guy. He is. So anyways, he said that one of the things that he sees with women who are in a driven role in their life, that they're using so much testosterone. And so they're depleting testosterone at such a fast rate because they need it to get through their driven, high performing day, which is totally me. So he's like, at the end of the day, what a woman needs to do is to bring estrogen back up. And if she can bring estrogen back up, then it'll start to bring testosterone back up. Like it'll pull testosterone back up. So I said, well, what do you need to do to bring estrogen up? And he said, estrogen growth in women, anything we do that brings us joy. Anything that we do that is connection, like right now, we're probably boosting each other's estrogen. And he's like, so at the end of a day, you've got to sit and like whatever is going to bring you joy after a testosterone driven day. If it's sitting on the couch and watching a Netflix series, do it. If it's calling your favorite friend, do it. But, and if it's talking to your husband and like processing the day and that makes you feel good, do it. So I've been doing that as well. But what I realized was, well, what if I come in with testosterone and then estrogen doesn't get as depleted as much? And that was where that bioidentical works so well.
Oh, I love that. Well, and I mean, think about high driven women, which there's so many listening right now. We're depleting everything. Let's
Oh,
be honest. Like the amount of
yes.
minerals and antioxidants and vitamins that are needed for us to do what we do every single day. Whew, goodness.
Right.
But I do love having rituals that are feel good for so many reasons, not just
Yep.
that yummy boost, but like we just deserve it. You know,
Yep.
I remember my publishing house asked us to do is during perimenopause awareness month or menopause awareness month. And what were 3 things you would tell your perimenopausal self? And one of them was, I deserve to feel good. Like
Yeah.
that was just like, that is up. That was like number one for me.
Yeah.
And then the next one was only doing things that are full body. Yes. If you
Mm.
know, it's like just
Oh, I
tapping
love that.
into the full body. Yes. Cause so often in that, because it's 50% of our life almost is in the perimenopause and beyond. Like
Yeah.
it's a big chunk of time,
A
ladies.
big.
And
Yeah.
the fact that we are ignoring that modern medicine ignores it is just it's
Yeah.
hooey. It's ridiculousness.
Yeah.
It's shameful, to be honest. And so that's why we have this, why we're here. You and me, we're
Right.
here for this reason. It's a big chunk of time, but I think about like so often we're so bombarded with obligation in this particular transition. We got
So
so
true.
much that we got to do, have to do. And I was like, well, what if it didn't have to be like that? Like, what if we
Right.
could just like, I don't want to do that. I'm not gonna. And then the last one was really understanding our metabolic flexibility, which
Oh,
I think is a great segue into what we're
yes.
talking about today.
Yes.
Because
That
man, that has got to be dialed. I mean, that's the thing for you, Mindy, too. That is dialed,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
For
And
me, it's totally dialed. In fact, I didn't start off to tell you I'm on a third day of a water fast right now,
it's
and
amazing.
my husband and I we're doing it together with our community in celebration of the book. And I said to him this morning, I was like, "Are you hungry?" And he's like, "I'm not hungry at all." And I'm like, "I'm not either." Like we're on the third day of a water fast, and we're both walking around like, "Oh yeah, I forgot we're water fasting." So that's what it's the metabolic flexibility that I've been practicing in my 40s that has us in that spot.
That is amazing. I know people are just like jaw dropped, like, huh? Like I'm still recovering. I'm like trying to get my stuff together. We're recording this on the 5th of January, by the way. And I know that there are so many people who are like, I'm still in pajamas. I don't know what
Right.
you're talking about.
I'm still eating my Christmas cookies
There's
in
still
pajamas.
Christmas cookies in the fridge. There's still like, in the back of the cabinet, shame chocolate eating going on back here.
Oh my God, that's so funny. So true. Well, that they can go get fast like a girl. So when they're ready to recover from that, they can learn how to be metabolically flexible.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so let's segue over to the book. It's so incredible, it's so amazing. And I just would love to ask, like, when you sat down and you were like, okay, this is the book I'm writing, this is what I'm feeling called to. What was the main intention for wanting to write this book?
Yeah. I love speaking with other authors because you understand the mindset of what goes on to write a book, to go through that whole experience. And you're right. There's like a moment where you're like, I've got to write about this.
Yeah, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? 2 years ago.
Then I got
Let's
to
take
stay
you back to 2021.
and I got to stay excited for 2 years about it. It's so
Mhm.
true. It's people don't realize how long it takes to put a book out into the world. So there were twofold. One was I was teaching fasting to my online world, specifically my YouTube channel, and I started to see a real difference in how women needed to fast compared to men. And then I was going through that experience myself. I was learning how to vary my fast as a perimenopausal woman. And then really what the catalyst was is how many articles were coming out, and they were like, women shouldn't fast, women shouldn't fast. And it started to create this like bad reputation, like we were not supposed to fast. And that was when I just put my hat in the ring and I was like, okay, we got to have a book just for women. I watched all these fasting books come out one after another. And I was like, no, we need one for women. And so that's where I just was like, we got to write it. So I wrote it.
I love it. Well, let's dispel some of the myths. I know there's some women listening right now who have read the articles or whatever is out there that say if you fast, your thyroid is going to go in the crapper. If you fast, you may just lose your period. If you fast, you're not going to recover from it metabolically on the back end. These are just some. I'm just throwing some.
Oh, these are all. Yeah, I got answers for all of those. You're spot on for at what people are saying.
And so let's talk a little bit about, dispelling some of those biggest myths, and talk about not only dispelling them, but like what are the, I mean, you have taught me so much. You have taught me so much. And I'm about to finish my breastfeeding journey. I never thought in a million years I'd still be breastfeeding after 2 years old, but here I am. And so, I'm a little bit more fluid on it. And I'm so excited that once this journey is over, I'm going to get it. I'm going to hit it harder. You know what I'm saying? And so, I'm super stoked, but like some of the big, massive benefits of doing it, after we dispel some of these myths.
Yeah. So do you want me to do the myth busting first?
I love me some myth busting.
Let's start with thyroid, because this is the most common one. The first thing, and this actually goes into a lot of the scenarios you just gave, is that when we look at fasting is not calorie restriction. I really have to emphasize that, because when we talk about thyroid, that is so important. It is time restriction. So you are putting all your food into a very specific time period. And in the book, I give 6 different length fasts, and you can choose that. And I show why you would want it fast for different time lengths. So with thyroid, once you open up your eating window and you're going to eat. That is not a time to go into calorie restriction. So if you do a 15-hour fast and you have a thyroid problem, once you open up your eating window, you better make sure you get enough calories. So the second thing about thyroid in the studies that I saw was that in all the research, they show in a fasted state, T3 goes down. But then if you don't look at the other studies, there are other studies that show, and when you reintroduce food back up, T3 doubles. That T3 goes up in like surges in a bigger way. So we have to, a lot of the premise of the book is that fasting is only one part of the equation. What we bring back into our eating window and how we break our fast will continue that healing journey even a deeper way, which is what thyroid health is.
Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
And then let's talk a little bit about people thinking that they're just going to wreck their hormones overall, like their menstrual cycle is going to be off. And I think that probably this speaks into the first myth bust as well, is that maybe people are they're restricted eating, they're calorie restricting even during their window.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the big part of the book, is that what I learned is that you can't, as a woman, you can't just fast the same way all month long. You've got to get to know your hormones. So the way I like to look at it is that, and this is my new sort of phrasing, is estrogen and progesterone are like twin sisters. They may look alike, we may call them the same name, give them like the same last name, but they have vastly different personalities. And estrogen shines when you fast. The protective estrogen is going to just be so.
She loves it. Yeah, she's like, yeah, like, let's do this.
That's right. She's like,
testosterone loves it too.
Yeah, it's so funny because I was like, I've been on this 3-day water fast, and this morning I woke up and I'm like, my skin feels so moist, and I'm like, oh, estrogen. I've been giving her an opportunity to come in such a big way right now. It's so cool. So she loves when you fast, and progesterone hates it. Progesterone is like, give me glucose. Don't give me any cortisol. Sit me on the couch, give me a box of pizza and a tub of ice cream, and let the world move away from me, and I'm happy. So we've got 2 conflicting hormones, but in a 28, 30-day cycle, front half, to keep it simple, front half of the cycle, estrogen's coming in, back half of the cycle, progesterone's coming in. So women need to know how to cycle their fasts and their foods according to those hormones.
Absolutely. And then how does it change? We've talked about this on the show a couple of times already, but how does it shift? Obviously, women are like, okay, yes, I get that in my 20s and into my 30s. I'm 45. It is all everything's hitting the fan right now. And my cycle is all over the place. We're still tracking it, right? We're doing the best we can to figure out, I know this can be a more tumultuous time.
Yeah. So there's a couple of recommendations. Perimenopause is the hardest age group for me to explain how to fast to. So I'll give you some kind of core principles, and I go in deeper in the book. But one is that we got to get to know the personalities of our hormones. So start to understand, like, when you're spotting, that is progesterone saying, hey, I need you to help me out here. I need you to raise glucose. I need you to lower cortisol. So spotting isn't just a byproduct of perimenopause. You can start to read that and know how to step out of fasting, step out of keto. Estrogen, in perimenopause is changes to skin and hair, mucosal membranes dry out, the nose, vaginal area, cognition goes off. So when those symptoms show up, you want to make sure that you're leaning into some of the longer fasts. So you can start by understanding the personalities. The second thing is, I'm so happy to hear you're tracking, and it kind of cracks me up because I started tracking at 45 and I'd never tracked before. And I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I'm tracking my cycle at a time when my cycle is exiting. But it was really helpful for me to understand where I needed to change my food habits. And again, I wrote all about that in the book. The third way that I think is really interesting, this is a new way I've been talking to people about it, is if you have like a 60-day cycle or like it goes months, start tracking it with the moon. So there's a lot of interesting information coming out right now that if we didn't have all this blue light on us, that most women would be cycling at the same time around the ebbs and flow of the moon. So a lot of my menopausal women, a lot of the women who are 60, 90 days without a cycle, I recommend once you hit that like 30 days, you don't know where you are, then look at where the moon is and just start tracking it according to the moon. And I don't know, have you ever done that?
I have actually, I run with the moon.
Tell me more. What does that mean?
My cycle is with the moon cycle. So I start with a full moon, I'm bleeding. Yeah.
Okay.
So my cycle is it's really fascinating to be 43, still breastfeeding, obviously doing a lot of things around metabolic flexibility. And for the most part, I land at 28 days. Occasionally, I think that the breastfeeding piece is kind of just messing with things a little bit. And I just won't know until that's gone. And then retest and redo all the things. So it's a really interesting time to be kind of at the precipice of perimenopause, and then to have this other really important role that I'm playing. But for the most part, I land right on the moon cycle.
Amazing.
Which is really nice, which keeps things easy. And it's so interesting because, I definitely am more in the direction of we should just keep tracking that into menopause. Yeah. But also there's a little bit of, I don't know if you know this better than I do, but the freedom of those hormones have definitely diminished. We kind of we're never like men, but hormonally things are not as ebb and flowy as they were.
That's right.
We have more leeway in menopause to kind of rip the Band-Aid off, so to speak.
Yeah. And when we look at fasting for both men and women, feast famine cycling is what we always have to be thinking about. We have to be thinking that we fast longer sometimes, and then some days we don't fast. And some days, we eat a higher carb meal and other days we don't. And so when you move into that time where you don't have a cycle, you can vary it a lot easier because you don't have a cycle to track it to. So you're right. As you're exiting into that menopausal, out of your menstrual cycle into the menopausal time, there is a sense of freedom, but just make sure you still vary it.
Okay, got it. Yeah, that's what I was like. I feel like we're still kind of in a middle ground.
Yeah.
Where we're still not men.
Yeah, we're still not men. No.
Menopause or not, we're just not. Yeah. But we do have some more flexibility to kind of play around with at that time than we would have had in perimenopause, in the transition over. And definitely it's a little bit more gray, more freedom than we having that cycle when we are, in that potential of producing children.
That's right. Yeah. And the differences of men and women, I'm sure you've spoke of this on your podcast, but I think it's really important. It doesn't matter what time of life you are. Men really have testosterone to think about, and then testosterone goes up into the brain and converts into estrogen. So a man, when he starts to fast or he starts to look at his lifestyle to improve testosterone, or hormones in general, he has one to think about. Women, we have three. And they are all made, when we're ovulating, the majority is made in our ovaries. When we go into menopause, now it's in our adrenals and some peripheral tissue, but we still always, doesn't matter if we're 35 or 65, we're never completely, like a man. No. Because we have these three hormones, which means variation and catering to these three hormones still becomes an issue that we've got to think about as we age.
Agreed. Well, and that's why it's just more nuanced for us. And the way, however, how we want to have the mindset around that, like it's a superpower. It doesn't have to be something that restricts us, but we have to be mindful about it none the same.
That's right.
Just, you know what it is that we can always handle more things in the air.
That's right. It's true.
It's true.
Out for a second. So all throughout my book, I'm like, your hormones are a superpower. And, you know, for so many years, we have as women in general, this wider emotional range because our hormones give that to us. Mm-hmm. And yet we villainize it, you know, and we bitch about it. But in general, these three hormones we're ridiculously powerful. During the pandemic, I kept walking around and I'm like, we just need to line all of the women up that are ovulating and we need to put them in a room and say, how do we get out of this situation? Because they've got estrogen at its peak, testosterone, a little bit of progesterone. They're equipped to handle any problem during ovulation.
It's so true. Superpowers. When I was actually just talking to someone today about how everyone wants women to be on day 13 of their cycle 24/7 every single day. That's how we want women to show up in the world. You know, everything's peaked. We're high confidence, sensual. We're deeply connected. We're nurturing at our peak. I'm like, but at the end of the day, we're going to be on day 27 too. Right. You know, day 27 is coming, you know, and that looks different. And we get to own that. And people get to support us around that. And the more that we normalize this, that, hey, my neurotransmitters, what's going on in my brain on day 27 looks so different than what's happening on day 13. Yeah. And the more that we talk about this and understand this, and we just appreciate who we are on day 27 equally as much as we do on day 13, it just shifts everything.
Yeah. I love what you just said because, you know, earlier in the conversation, you asked me like why I wrote this book. And one of the things I keep saying is that books like this, books like you've written, they crack open conversations like this, crack open the opportunity for us as women to say, yes, our moods, our mental clarity, our energy is different at different times of the month. And that is how we're designed. But what we're doing is that we're living in a very patriarchal world. And this is not like anti-men or anything. It's just that the patriarchal world says hard work, put your head down, you know, do this, and you do it over and over and over again. And the female body is more of a feminine, obviously, and says, hey, you know, some parts of the month I can do that. I'm okay with that. But other parts of the month, I really need you to back away from me. And I need you to just let me be in my introspective place. But that back half of your cycle, that week before our period, too many women are using that patriarchal push on through. And that's what's damaging us hormonally.
Oh yeah. I mean, I cannot tell you how often I in my HIIT training classes, it's day 27 or day 28. And I was like, you will just push yourself, just make it happen, Mariza. That would be my talk. Just like, you do what you need to do. And like, just fighting against all of my biology to just get this workout done. And the rest of the day was like meetings all day, interviews all day. I mean, it was just and I was just constantly just like push through it. Just figure it out.
Me too.
You know, and I just nurture my younger self of just a poor woman just getting pummeled.
Yes. Yeah. I was the same way. I was like the same way. Like if I didn't feel like working out, I had a whole thing in my mind of like, get up, go do it. I don't care that you don't want to do it. Mm-hmm. So pummeling is exactly what it was like, pummeling ourselves. I wish I could go back to my 25 and 35-year-old self and say, you know, it's okay to rest during this week.
It's okay. If your body's saying, please don't, let's just take a walk.
That's
just do that. Do that instead.
Yeah. Okay? You know what I did with walking? Because the first time I made the decision to walk for exercise, I was like, you're being so lazy right now. Why are you not running? So then my brain said, well, what if we give it a different name? Walking just doesn't have a good sense for me. So I'm going to call it my forward movement workout. You are just moving forward. It doesn't matter at what pace. So it became part of my workout lingo. I was like, I'm going to go do a forward movement workout. I'll be right back.
I love that you reframed it. No, it was never okay.
Right.
It was never okay. I was like, no, just run.
Right.
And
like,
so
suck it up.
or how I've reframed. I mean, I talk so much about walking, how it's the most underrepresented, underutilized rock star thing that you can do for your blood sugar and your metabolism and your mental and emotional well-being and your digestive system, all the things. But for a long time, I was like, well, this is my podcast time. Or this is I'm still being productive.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm using my mind. This is where I'm listening to an Audible book right now. Yes, I'm walking too. This isn't your workout. This is just you educating yourself while you move your body. That was kind of how I reframed it. And
I love it.
Now walking is, I got my Fitbit, you know what I'm saying? Like I crush 10,000 steps every single day. And I relish being out in nature. I'm really convinced that we're sun beings, that we are meant to be out in sun, that our circadian rhythms are really meant to be activated and supported through being out in the sunshine as much as you can. Obviously, it's the winter time right now. So I'm all about the walking.
And, on the circadian rhythm thing, that's so interesting is that, and I'm sure you came across this yourself, is like the more I understand female hormones, the more I understand we are so intimately tied to the earth and the moon and the sun. And like, we can't separate ourselves from that. So when you go for a midday walk, you're not only calming your brain, but you're stimulating serotonin receptor sites in your eyes. You're moving yourself, you're lowering cortisol. If you see nature, you're changing your exposure to different microbes. Good. And it feels amazing.
It feels good. Incredible. I mean, I think we know, if we take a look at the last several decades, what it looks like, what it feels like to go against the grain of our circadian rhythms. It does not feel good. It is not, No, we are feeling, we've got severe, people with anxiety and depression. I think it's 1 in 4 kids have mental concerns. And it's just, we can tell the pandemic did nobody any favors because we weren't outside at all. And so, I think we're feeling that. And walking is one of the best ways that you just connect in with nature. I do have a question about circadian rhythms, and I want to move into fasting and like, how do we get started? But a question I'm really curious to ask you, this has been really fascinating. Our son, he eats at 5. So we eat at 5 too. And usually we walk before or after our dinner for blood sugar support and glucose variability. And the beach is literally an 8-minute walk down the street. It's amazing. It's incredible. The sunset, all the things. But we have been really interested in time restricted eating, basically eating before the sun's going down or close to when the sun's going down. So I stop eating 6 o'clock is my ceiling, unless we're out of town, we're, like something. But like my normal day to day, we cook food, we cook dinner at 4.
That's amazing.
And we eat at 5. I mean, I'm literally my grandmother. And then I don't eat, I don't eat again until like 10 or 11 the next day. And so that's what we're doing. And I have felt incredible. And I don't know if you address this in the book at all in general. I mean, obviously I tailor it to the different times of my cycle. Also, those things shift too. But what in the research have you seen about moving dinner earlier? Like when it comes to fasting, I'm just curious.
It's so smart. So where I've evolved on taking your eating window is, I think if you want to be the most metabolically healthy, you want to eat when the sun's out. And the minute it goes dark, either whether it's the morning or the evening, when melatonin comes in, melatonin actually makes you more insulin resistant.
Yes.
So So here's the crazy thing. Let's say we're just going to throw something like a bowl of pasta. Let's say you eat a bowl of pasta I know, sorry. I'm just
I'll tell you exactly what's going to happen, girl.
So you eat your bowl of pasta, you don't go to sleep afterwards. But let's say you eat it at 5 o'clock and it's still light out and you go for your walk like you do. What happens is you actually have enough insulin that's going to help you process the glucose from that pasta. That same pasta at 8 or 9 o'clock, when it's dark, you forget it. That's going straight to fat. That's
straight to your booty, or your tummy or somewhere. Maybe you want it on your booty. I don't know, but like, you don't want it to go.
That's exactly right. So it's so crazy that the same meal, this is where like calorie counting is ridiculous.
2 hours later.
Yes. Yeah. So now that we have kids out of the house, we're empty nesters. I'm like, okay, we can actually eat when we want to eat. So we've been doing the same routine as you, eat at 5. And I love it. I love it.
My, I wore a blood sugar or CGM for over a year, and I was mind blown. And if I ate past 6, it was like, I mean, it didn't matter what it was. It definitely
Yeah.
didn't have to be pasta. It never was pasta. Let's be honest. Like
Yeah.
it was broccoli and, and a sexy steak or something. And I still saw, variability that I was not excited about. And
Right.
so, I mean, and the later and later it got, if we ended up eating, I just kissed that meal goodbye. Like it was
That's
all
right.
fat storage. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, that's really where I was looking at this more and more. And kind of at 5 o'clock was my sweet window where it felt reasonable that that was a dinner time.
Yeah.
But that I wasn't eating dinner at 3, and not that some people aren't doing that, but
Right.
but that I still had sensitivity. I still had insulin sensitivity, especially with the walk. The walk was the game change too. But I was like, gosh, I feel like so many of us, like, there's obviously lots of ways that we could be fasting, but that just felt like if we could just move dinner a little bit earlier, it'd be a really smart way to support our metabolic health. Anyway.
It's so smart. And it's so smart. And I think you really can look at it as just make sure you're eating when it's light out, because melatonin's coming in when it's dark.
Yes.
Now, in the summer, that's a lot easier. In the winter, you're going to have to be a little more disciplined about it. But it's one of those hormonal concepts that's not talked about enough. So I'm so glad that you brought it up, because a lot of people are doing all the right things and they're still not getting the result that they want. And that I always come back to, okay, now let's look at when you're eating, like where is that eating window for you?
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. And I knew this was just a nuance on the biggest building blocks, but it was just something I've been wanting to ask you because I've been looking at some of the research and I've been tracking it for myself and my family. And it has just made such a big difference. It's funny how just some certain small things can make such a big difference. Yeah. But I also wanted to ask, because I know people are thinking as they're listening to this and women are thinking, okay, I can actually do this. I need to get this book. Please go get it. Go get it right now. Fast Like a Girl. It's everywhere books are sold. And she is, I mean, there are already tens of thousands of people that already bought this book. So I promise you, you are with a grand majority of people getting the hold of this book. But what do you recommend if we've been hearing about this for years, we've been thinking about it, and we're finally ready to do this?
Yes.
Outside of taking into consideration our menstrual cycle, absolutely a consideration when we're doing this. Where do we start?
Yeah. So here's the surprising thing. And in the book, I lay out what I call a pre-reset, meaning you do this for 2 weeks and it eases you into whatever fast you choose. The surprising part is that where you start is with your food. So make sure that you have made, right? You make sure you've made.
You don't start with Cheetos?
No, you don't. I mean, you can go from the Western diet straight into fasting, but it's going to be a little bit harder. I'm not going to lie.
It's going to hurt.
Yeah, it's going to hurt. It's like sitting on, think of it like you're sitting on the couch for like 4 months. And one day you get up and throw some running shoes on and you're like, I'm going to go run 6 miles.
Yeah. Or like go do burpees or something. You don't go from couch to burpees.
That's right. Like you can do it. It's not like humanly impossible, but it's going to suck. So yeah. So I really like people to start with food, and here are the 3 food changes.
Yes.
One is oils. And I'm sure you've talked extensively about this. Like we got to get the bad oils out and the good oils in. I'm sure your book has it. My book has it. If you don't know what that is, it's really important to know. Second is I'm really a fan. I know there's been a lot of variations of keto and there's a lot of dirty, yucky keto products out there. So I really recommend your first step is just to go from processed carbs, man-made carbs, to nature's carbs. So what that looks like is instead of pasta, which is a refined carbohydrate that had to be milled, you want to go to a sweet potato or to a potato. So look at the things that come out of the earth, because that's going to have more fiber. Your blood sugar is going to balance out better. So make that switch. And the third one is stop eating toxins. And, toxins are in, well, and that kind of goes into the carb. Yeah, that's a toxin. But like NutraSweet and your chemicals that are in your foods, like get rid of that stuff, because those are obesogens. They're making you feel worse. I even take it one step further and say, look at what you're putting on your skin, because that's an obesogen. Your plastic water, that's an obesogen. These are making you metabolically inflexible.
My Stanley Cup over here travels with me. Kingston and my Stanley Cup. You'll always see those two together with me.
You're like, these are my 2 boys.
They're my babies.
Kingston and Stanley. I love that. Do you get on a plane and be like, I'm going to put my son here and then my water bottle son over here?
I do. I give the water bottle son to my husband. I'm like, I'm going to need you to hold this.
You hold Stanley. I'm going to take care of
Stanley.
Kingston.
Yeah, I'm constantly giving Stanley to Alex because I have a 30-ounce version of this too. This is the 20. And when it's full and I'm carrying a 25-pound child, I'll tell you what, my husband's like, you're crazy. Like, what are you doing? You've got a big old water bottle and you got a child in your hand. I'm like, this is mom stuff. This is what moms do.
Mom's going to snuggle with the cute little squishy boy and you get to hold Stanley.
I know you're actually, you know what? You're absolutely right, Alex. Here, you hold my Stanley cup. I'll take the baby. I know that's not what you were signing up for on this walk, but now you get my Stanley cup.
Oh my God, that's so good. So good.
Yeah, that's right. That's what dads are for, right? Dads are just
yeah.
hold
you know
all the
what?
stuff mom can't hold.
Oh my God. Do you know that when after both kids were born, my son, his second child was maybe 6 months old. My husband poured hot oil on his hand and we had to go to the hospital. And they put he put his hand in a big container of water to cool it down. But once we got to the hospital, they were like, no, this is not how you manage a burn, I guess. So they took it away and he sat in there and he was in so much pain. And this little devil inside my brain, as I sat there watching him in pain, was like, yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Like when you watch your loved one in pain, it's kind of like when I was pushing 2 babies out of my womb naturally, like it's a whole nother level of pain, which is why I get to hold the cute cuddly child now, because I earned it. Unfortunately, you're not going to have an earning experience here, but I do think there is a bit of this, the mom, biological focus of what we have to do to carry, what we have to do to deliver, what we have to do to nurse. When we want the baby to snuggle with, we get the baby.
We get the baby. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, yeah, I mean, and I think just mom and modeling non-toxic everything. I mean, I hand wash everything of my sons. Wow. Everything is glass. He's got his own stainless steel cup.
He's got a Stanley.
He's got his own little mini Stanley. They forget the company. I did, hours of research, and just the products that go on his skin, everything, it matters. All of this matters. I talked about how many children we're seeing struggling with mental illness. And I am convinced that it's because of all the toxins and all the ultra processed foods that they were exposed to even in the womb. Yes. That it just now, maybe it didn't hit us until we were our 30s and 40s. Now we're seeing it hitting in teenagers earlier because they were exposed to it out the jump.
There's so much to say on that topic, but I interviewed a couple of years ago the woman who wrote a book called Countdown. And it was about how our sperm counts were going down. And she even put in there that penis sizes were shrinking in the babies that were being born. So I brought her onto my podcast to talk about why is that? And this is what she said. First trimester, when you're exposed to an overabundance of phthalates, which phthalates are in all of our fragrances. Yeah. And meats and water, but fragrances are a big one. It lowers testosterone. And if the testosterone in a mom who has a growing boy in her womb is down, the actual area between the anus and the penis will actually shrink, and that penis will get pulled in, and literally that child is born with a smaller penis. And on top of that, all the going forward, any exposure to these phthalates changes sperm counts. So that's crazy.
Yeah, I know. It's real. It's crazy. And I know we're not getting into all of that. My son does not fast for what, but in terms of what we give him in terms of food and what he's been exposed to out the gate, what the protocols that I was on pregnancy, and then once he was born, because I'm still breastfeeding, there's so much that goes into that. But we are so metabolically conscious. It was interesting navigating this holiday season, because a lot of the grandmas and aunties, they feel like my son should be eating a lot of stuff that I don't feel the same way about, I just and I remember having a conversation with one of my, I won't say who it is, but I sat down with one of my relatives and I was like, because there was certain foods for us and then there were certain foods for other people. And so it was always pointed out oh, that's this food, or, oh, that's this kind of thing. I was like, well, maybe not even say it. Maybe let them try it. Why can't we just upgrade our food? Why can't we just upgrade our treats? Why can't we just upgrade, the things that we're serving during the holidays? Why does there have to be ultra processed over here for the normal people? And then the healthier options for you guys? I'm like,
Amazing.
why couldn't we all just get an upgrade? You
Yeah.
know, like why can't we
Love
make
that.
brownies with whole ingredients? Why
Yeah.
can't we make, banana muffins with allergy free, like little chocolate chips on top of them, and it all just tastes good, but there's no process. I mean, there's a little bit, a little bit of processing. You make a muffin, it is what it is, but like there, it's as minimal as possible. Like, why can't we look like that moving forward? And we agreed not to agree.
Oh no. I was going to say, how did that conversation go?
And I was just like, but maybe we just don't do the ultra processed version of things. I was like, maybe brownies don't come in a box. Like, I just, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's so many recipes out there that are gluten free and dairy free and allergy free. Like, And
I love that.
We're going to keep doing box brownies. So it's, and I'm just going to keep bringing brownies there. It's so crazy. But I just wanted to, like you said, we've got to change the food first. Yeah. And guess what? We've never lived in a time where the upgrades are available.
That's right.
It's all available and it's not that hard. And you can even buy some of them.
Yeah, right. It's just being aware of it. And it's unfortunate that we live in a time where those 3 food changes are just prevalent and they're everywhere and
everywhere.
They're in Whole Foods. You can go into Whole Foods and find all, plenty of toxic ingredients, which is really sad. But once you do that, the second part of that is, we really have to get out of this, wake up in the morning, eat. I need to eat every couple of hours to speed up my metabolism. There's no evidence that that speeds up your metabolism. So what we've got to start doing is starting to compress our eating window. And the easiest way for a new faster is just push your breakfast back an hour. And, what will probably happen is there'll be a moment that you're like, oh my God, this is hard. Why did I listen to that podcast and listen to that woman say, push my breakfast back an hour? Like, you're going to go into a lot of questioning, but in that moment, your body's adapting. It's very much like going to the gym. When you go to the gym and you work out, and all of a sudden you have to up your workout in order to get a better result. So pain, we have to not be afraid of discomfort when we're applying some of these health habits. And eventually, you compress it enough, you just keep pushing it back little by little by little. And eventually you'll get to that first ledge, which is somewhere between 13 and 15 hours.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, after we've been doing this for many years now, it feels so good. I love the freedom of, having that metabolic flexibility, not worried or fearing being hangry. You have that. It is such a freeing experience, especially when you're eating life-giving, whole, unprocessed foods. When you are in your eating window, your body just feels so good. And your mitochondria, let me tell you, your mitochondria will love you for not having to constantly work so damn hard. When you're eating too many times, we need a break. Your mitochondria needs a break. Your cells need a break. Your cells, when you're eating all the time, it's like a teenage boy in their bedroom. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't even want to go in there. You can't even walk through it. You need your cells to go in and clean up that teenage bedroom. You know what I'm saying? And like clear it out.
Oh my God. Did you have a brother? That's such a good analogy. That's so good. It's like, you don't even want to. But you're right. Like a toxic cell is like a teenage boy's room. It's, it's smelly. It's inflamed with a lot of things.
You don't know where the floor is. You know what I'm saying?
You don't know where the floor is. You might step on something that's slimy that you're not really wanting to. Like, there's so many obscure things about that, but you're right. And so when you fast, it's like sending a maid or a superhero.
Yeah, a superhero
to go in there and clean it all up. And that's what's happening to you cellularly. It's a good analogy. I love that.
And that's what your mitochondria deserve. I mean, if you're wondering why you're feeling sluggish, if you're wondering why things aren't running well, you're just, especially after this holiday season, is your mitochondria just gunked up. Yep. And they need a break. And I think this is one of the easiest, like you said, food has got to be the first thing you focus on. I love that so much. And then give your body, this is what you're doing for your body.
That's right.
That's how we have to think about it. This isn't a deprivation. This is allowing your body finally the opportunity to go and clean it up and to heal up. That's right. That's what we're talking about. Now, I've done a couple water fasts. I'm almost ready to go back into them. But that's next level. That's like a 2.0.
Yeah. So in the book, I mapped out 6 different lengths, everything from like 12 hours to 72 hours. And I explain why you would do each one and how to train yourself for one. What has shocked me about putting this book out into the world is we decided to do a 3-day water fast challenge with the launch of the book. So that's this week. That's what we're doing. And 7,800 people signed up.
That's amazing.
We literally have like, you're like 7,800 people that and I'm like, in a lot of like the publishers, when I pitched this book to the publishers, are like, I don't think people are going to want to do a long fast. Holy cow, they do. And a lot of it is because as you learn to fast, you end up craving longer fasts because you feel your body has a new vibration. It has a restored mental clarity. I've noticed like I had like a shoulder stiffness, like third day of a fast, it's completely gone. So all of my inflammation is coming down. You just experience your body in a new way. So it's really incredible.
Oh, I love it. And I love that you just give us all that we need, like the blueprint for every type of fast we want to do, exactly how to step us through it, what the considerations to consider as a woman. The book is called Fast Like a Girl. Dr. Mindy Pelz, it's been a pleasure. I'm going to have the link in the show notes. We're going to have it as a solo in our email to our audience. And I just want to say again, congratulations. And thank you so much for writing this book. We so desperately needed it.
Oh, thank you. I feel like every time I say we're cracking open the conversation, it takes several of us to write books like this to crack the conversation open. And you've done that as well. So thank you for having me. And I just adore you. Thanks for this fun conversation.
Thank you.